Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
Welcome, Amber. I really want to acknowledge and appreciate Amber Laird, who's with me today. And we're having a conversation about Amber's experience at Women Wanting More Live 4.0. So this was the fourth live event that I did with Women Wanting More. And Amber's the third of 5 interviews you're going to be seeing here at Facebook Live and all different places and on the podcast. Listening to this audio, this is the audio recording of this. And as I just told Amber is going in is, there's two reasons I really want to do these interviews. And this is now, okay, so we were beginning of November, we're almost February right now, right? So this is like 3 months after the live event is number one. I just really want to champion the women that were there. Like Amber, you and the 4 other incredible women have just done like amazing work leading up to at the live event. And then so many of you that have continued on with this work, right? So I want to acknowledge all of you. And the second piece is I'd share with Amber then too going in is like, you know, we resonate with people's own words, right? Like your story and the other women's stories. And I can create, and I have created like a movie of the experience, but still for a lot of women, they'll be like, well, what is this thing, this live event, and this, what I call it now, which is the evolution. And that's simply because even from when you were at the very first one, which we're going to chat about, and then 4.0, the evolution now will be something entirely different. It'll be like the next level. So very different from the very first, the last one, and this one will be that next expansive level of it. But there is this kind of like, what is it and how does this work? And so I just really know that by sharing stories and allowing you to be able to just to share what it was like for you will really connect with a lot of women, you know, and really inspire. And so let's just start at the very beginning. So you and I met through, you were following the podcast initially, right? Or did we connect on Facebook?
No, I was following the podcast.
The podcast, okay. And you have your father-in-law who went to Warrior with my husband, was at the same Warrior Week 20, your father-in-law, Dallas. Mm-hmm. And so then I guess you started maybe listening from there, or Dallas shared something. And then you and I connected. You were one of my first coaching clients when I launched coaching in November, December of 2015. Yep. Yeah, 2015. And then you came out to my live event then about a year later. So we coached together for about 3 months one-on-one, and then came out to the 1.0 live event, October of 2016. Mm-hmm. And then actually came out to the one-day event too I had in June of 2017. And then to 4.0, which was November of 2017. So let's maybe start from there. Like when you decided, okay, like I've known Karen for a while, I've coached with her, we've done a live event, and I came back to like a one day, which is a really different kind of experience. And then like, I need to come back again. Like, can you just share, like, where were you in your life at that time? What made you want to say, hey, I'm going to apply and like, kind of like continue this work?
Mm-hmm. Well, in the to kind of back up to the very first live event, I was in a terrible place. Our businesses literally were shut down. We had run a hotel and it got struck by lightning, which, you know, it was the craziest thing. And so our businesses were all inside the hotel. It just felt like everything had kind of collapsed, and you had reached out to me pretty close to right after that had all happened. And I was like, oh, I'm just not in a good place. This is really probably not the best time. And I think the truth is that those terrible times are the best times. Those deep, dark places where you don't know, you can't see how you'll ever get out of this, how you'll ever be okay again. Those are the times that you have to dig. And you have to do something that's, you know, out of your comfort zone and out of what you've been doing, because in order to get something different, you have to do something different. And you actually reached out to me a couple of times and kept, you know, like, okay, where are you with this? And which I really appreciated, because otherwise I would never have come. I really wouldn't. And I'll tell you what, that first one was incredible. The women there, like every part of it was, of course, scary to come in there not knowing, you know, what I was getting myself into exactly, because there is, like you said, there needs to be an air of sort of unknowing about it. Because I think one of the other interviews you did, you're like, well, okay, here's all the things that we're going to do. And that just doesn't really work.
Here's the agenda, right? Yeah.
You have to be open. You have to just be willing to go, okay, I'm going to sort of isolate myself, so to speak. I'm going to just be willing to do what comes up for me, what she has planned. And even if you had an agenda, it changes anyway. So it's not like that would have, everything you would have thought we were going to do in either of the events that I went to, it wouldn't have gone according to that plan anyway. So
kind of like life, right? Kind of like when the lightning struck your hotel, where it's like, how, why? Yeah. You don't, the thing is like, you don't know what the fuck's coming down the pipe a lot of times. And so we can have that plan. Like you said, if I gave you guys an agenda of like, okay, so this time we do this and you check in here and then we're going to eat here. And it's like, because stuff did really change on the fly, because that is also life, right? Things would change. I need to change and really listen to what was happening and what you women needed to shift where things needed to. Like you said, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
Right. So that was when you came in October of 2016. So how was it different then? Because again, were you at that point? Yeah, you guys were like in the pit, right? Like you were, really at a crisis level. How was it different then from then, the experience you went through, to then applying to 4.0? So when did we probably connect? Like September, I want to say. So probably like 2 months before, close to that, or 6 weeks, something. Yeah.
Yeah. I think even just having gone through the first live event, it's not a finish line. You don't leave the event and you're just like set for life. I had sort of what we call drifted, right? I had drifted from in the time between the first live event and the second, which, it's just somehow, sometimes that happens. It's hard sometimes to do the work and maintain the momentum and maintain the tools that we learned that we learn in these live events. And so I could see myself sort of going farther off track. And luckily for me, we had sort of reinvented our businesses at that point back in August of this past year. And so I was, financially back into a much better position. And I just knew that based on what I had experienced at the first one, that there was definitely more that I could learn from the second one. I did have a little bit, just of course, mostly just the fear and the, that voice like, oh, you if you didn't follow through on the first one 100%, what makes you think you're going to follow through on this next one? And I had those little voices like, and what else could she possibly do in this other one that we haven't
been there, done that, right? Yeah. Well,
I'll tell you what. And just like you were saying, I don't know if we were recording or not at this point, but when you were saying, the next one's going to be called the evolution and it's going to be a level up. I believe that. I mean, the difference between the first one and the second one for me was, it was incredible. I got insane value and insane, I don't even know what the words were, but the benefit and the value that came out of that first one was amazing, and the benefit and the value out of the second one was amazing too. And they were so much different.
And you were different too, right? Like I'm different in those experiences, so of course it's going to be different, but it's also, you were different a year later, different points in your life, different things that are happening. Of course the experiences will be different, right? But what was it like for you? So again, you had kind of, it was the same hotel, same room. So it might have been like, whoa, this is like deja vu or Groundhog Day or something, right? But what was it like for you? So coming into this experience, again, regardless of the past, but that's, of course for you, all you had was the past experience, and to think it's going to be similar, of course, right? That's that's your reference point. So what was it like for you on that first day? So when you checked in, and what was that like for you when you showed up?
I was still incredibly nervous. I mean, I knew again from the first one that there's a strictness about it. There's an agenda, so to speak, that you need to be checked in at this time. Of course, my flights were delayed, which Of course,
that's right.
That's what happens is your voice is like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to go to this. Maybe I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
But I worked it out with you, luckily, and I wasn't too late. But there was definitely still that same sort of like, I'm walking into this room when the elevator's open, and it's very nerve-wracking, because even though I thought I knew what I was getting myself into, you just really don't.
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay. It really is.
Mm-hmm. So from where you showed up, so again, at the very beginning, so it was like a Monday night, right? To Wednesday, what had shifted for you within those, 2.5 days or so? How were things? And, I remember that like last night, like vividly, that, all of you had such incredible like breakthroughs during those couple days, had such a transformation. But when you reflect back now, then almost 3 months later, when you saw again, the very beginning, first day, elevators open, right? You're like, here we go again, or totally different experience, to the last night. What was that like for you? What was the difference in you?
Oh gosh. I came into that so angry. It literally and figuratively was weighing me down. If you watch the video, like just looking at my face, the difference between the starting point and the ending point of the event is night and day. I mean, the exercise obviously that we did that allowed me to release some of that anger was incredible, but that's where I was when I walked in. I mean, and it clouded everything up until the point that, it went away. It clouded everything that I said, everything that I was thinking. It just was like it was like a blanket of anger that I just could not get myself out from under.
I love that you bring this up too. And by the way, since I'm now getting a little bit more masterful as we're recording this is on Facebook Live at the same time. If anybody has any questions, they can see me looking over here. It's because I've got my laptop open so I can just scan and see if there's any questions. So any questions you have for Amber or comments or anything, just feel free to put those in. But let's talk about this for a moment. This is a good conversation to have because there's this kind of like notion in the culture of women that we shouldn't be angry, that we should be grateful for our kids every single day. We should enjoy the moments, right? That we've gone in a marriage, whether or not it's where we want or not. It's like we have a husband, we have somebody who's here for us and is raising children with us. That we should be happy in the body that we have, when we shouldn't maybe be angry with like there's this thing about it. And I find like for men, it's very much socialized to like be okay with that, right? Like I'm a dude, I'm fucking pissed. I got rage. It's more like a primal thing. But for women, it almost becomes this like a shameful thing. But yet it's such a real thing to be like, listen, the anger, the rage, it's real, man. And women tend to like squash it, right? And be like, no, everything's like good, it's fine. And meanwhile, it's like lashing out at husband, lashing out at kids, lashing out at ourselves, right? Because there is not the acceptance of that. There isn't the clarity of what you want. It's very much this feeling of like having no energy, being overwhelmed, being frustrated, and then turns to anger, resentment, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so without knowing clearly what you want, without having the tools to know how to really release that and move through that, it does just become it eats away at you. Yeah. Right? I can't remember the way you just described it, just things were really different until that was really released and let go for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not, I don't want people to think that it's some just magical, like, oh, you just do this, you follow these steps and then everything is great. I mean, even as recently as yesterday, like my husband and I were not we were having a disagreement, and that the feelings that I was feeling prior to coming, some of those started popping back up. And it is just a question of, okay, what do I want? Is my desire to be right now greater than my desire to have a healthy marriage? And just kind of continually reminding yourself and continually going through the work of, okay, kind of like self-checking. Here's what's happening. Is this am I okay with this, or do I want something different?
Yeah. No, this is good. It's so interesting. The conversations with each of you are all like a little bit different, but this is a really valid point of like, coming through this experience, and so with this now being now three that I've had with this kind of immersive type, right? So that you came to the very first one, the second one, the third event was a different one. And then this was, again, that like really, immersive process, the 3 days, same with the evolution coming up in about 4 weeks. But that, yes, there's so much transformation that's possible, right? Within those, we kind of always joke and go, oh my God, it's been like 2 days, but it's felt like 2 weeks, right? Or 3 weeks.
Right.
But yet then what, right? What happens when you get back home, when you're in this bubble, when you don't have husband around and kids and business and other stuff? It's not easy work, but the possibility to have that very like quick isn't even the right word. Quick, like faster, right? Transformation is there. But then what happens when you get back home, right? When you're out of the bubble and you get back. So let's talk about this, because again, we haven't had this conversation yet with the previous two women. What was it like for you then? So you finish, you're like, oh my God, things are so different. A lot of the anger's released. And then you got back home. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to kind of see it from people's perspective outside of outside of our group. When you go home, you're excited, you're ready to like make all these changes, and you want to, you have all these ideas, and you're like, we could change this and we could do it this way. And everybody else is like, what are you even talking about? We weren't there. We don't know what you're trying to get us to do. And so it does have to be a gentle sort of reintegration back into your family, because they weren't there. But so many good things can come out of just trying to be gentle with them, and just trying to say, okay, well, here's some things that I learned. Here's some things that I see could be different. How do you think that would look? How do you feel about these things, instead of just going home? And for me, especially, like, I'm a firstborn. I'm like, here's what we're gonna do. I'm a leader. I have a plan. Like, this is it. And so my husband's a firstborn too, and so we do have that kind of little bit of a conflict sometimes, where he's like, okay, well, maybe
I got my plan.
Yeah,
you got your plan. What are we gonna do here, right? Yeah.
Let's talk about this instead of you just barking orders at me.
Yeah.
But it's just as long as you can keep yourself from, or you understand that the people around you weren't there, their excitement level isn't where you are, but at the same time, you don't have to hold that back either, because there is awesome things that can be integrated into a family from what we learn there. It's just a matter of being patient, I think, with your family and kids, especially, because they're not just gonna be like, oh yeah, okay, great, we're gonna do all these things different now and no problem. So it's just being gentle, I think, is really the key. Having a lot of conversations about it.
It's one of the things too that I've recognized, Amber, that, and it's kind of regardless of women that are given the chance and have taken the opportunity to say, like, I'm going to continue on, because there's a next step. One can continue on. And some, like you, just say, hey, you know what? I'm good. I got what I needed. Like, I'm going to kind of roll this on my own. And I found that regardless kind of either track that women have chosen, there still is that kind of like challenging transition, challenging of coming again from the bubble to like everything's pulled off and you're thrust back into life. And exactly like you said, it's like they weren't there. And so you come back with this, because I'd gone through similar experiences. The reason that I created these live events is I'd gone through significant change in group coaching that I was a part of. And I knew, like, those 3 days for me changed my fucking life. And so when I decided I want to start to do that, I wanted to create a similar experience because I knew the power of what is possible. But I also remember when I came back, and even though my husband had been through kind of similar stuff with Warrior, it was like, it's kind of like you, here's what we're going to do. I got the plan, blah, 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 blah. And it was just this clash a little bit for like a good couple of weeks. And so with my next event, the evolution, I've recognized that this is a challenge. And so the transition stuff is built in, the continued, coaching for, 90 days afterwards is built in. So it's part of that now. So that there'll be a smoother, if you will, transition, just learning from all of you, right? Learning from the coming back and being like, man, there's a lot of patience involved, or I have to really, show them and not just tell them what I'm going to do or what the plan is. And sometimes too, it's also from our loved ones. Like maybe in the past, we've said that we're going to do things and we haven't really followed through. And so whether it's our husband or our kids, and there is this moment of like, okay, I'm really happy you have this plan, but why don't you do it and not just talk about it, right? That's a little tough sometimes, a little bit of a tough pill for us to have to swallow, be like, okay, you know what? Maybe there's some validity to what they're saying, and maybe I haven't always followed through. So I'm going to head down, do the work that I have committed to doing. I'm clear on what I want to see happen over the next couple months, and I'm going to show them. I'm going to influence those around me by how I choose to show up. Yeah. And that in itself is so much more powerful than let me just like verbally like diarrhea all my stuff that I learned because I'm excited and I want to teach it to you. And then just instead like how you show up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, there's almost two sort of sides to that, where obviously there's things that happen and things that are shared in these events that don't go anywhere else. Mm-hmm. But I did notice a couple of things where maybe the first day or so where I was like, God, I don't even really want to share. How could I even describe it? How could I even, for people who weren't there, especially like my husband and stuff, what could I even say that would make it, that would do it justice almost? Mm-hmm. So there's almost this kind of like protection over the experience and over, what everybody has gone through and so I saw I felt both ways. I felt like, I just want to tell you everything. And then like, oh, actually, I just, I just want to kind of just.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're still like in the experience somewhat, right? Even though it's kind of like, we're done that night. Good night, everybody. Hugs and kisses. You guys go on your planes the next day and you go home to your families. It is still continuing, right? Like the stuff, and you're still kind of, I won't say working through this stuff, but you're still in the experience. And so there is having that little bit of like some space for you to just like figure stuff out, right? You've gone through this experience at this like breakneck speed, and suddenly you're having to kind of, again, come out of the bubble and go in. It's like, you want to gently like come back in and allow yourself a space and time to do that. So where we are then now, so again, almost like 3 months later, right? From when we saw you here in Victoria, BC. So where are things for you right now in your life? And so where would you say things are with your marriage, with the kids, with business? Like, how has this really continued on, if it has for you, since, you and I saw each other eyeball to eyeball three months ago?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, part of what we did were the 90-day outcomes, not like, not like what you do when you continue on, but within the event, there were some things that we talked about. Okay, this is what I want to do. And then we got sent home with those papers, right? One of my ones was to become a certain rank within my business. And I wanted that to happen within 90 days. And it happened at the end of November for me. So I was
oh my gosh, that's awesome.
It was so exciting. It really was. And just focusing on that and continuing to build and just like with anything, again, like we talked about, like, it's not just a finish line. There's always more. There's always, the next level, the more connection in your marriage and more connection with your kids. And, as that's the marriage piece of this has been kind of the reason that I've come to all of these events. And like I said, even as recently as yesterday, we had a disagreement, but it's resolved a lot quicker, I think, now. There's kind of those little voices in my head where I'm like, okay, is this what I want? Do I want to be, disconnected? Do I want to have these issues, or, is there another way? So I think I'm doing a lot better, keeping on track and continuing to grow and continuing to build from this second one than I did after the first one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with where everything is, business wise, and with my kids, and started a new exercise program. And that's a cool thing too, just kind of as a side note. The people and the women that you meet at these things, they have shared something that, I mean, in my life now, I have what, like 10 or 11 other women who've shared a similar experience.
Mm-hmm.
And those connections that you create there, they are strong. And it's almost like this exclusive sort of club that you're in. And you have, I mean, I still talk to most of the women who were in the first one. I occasionally talk to ones that were in the second one, but I mean, it's definitely a sisterhood when you're done there. I mean, there's a bond there between all of us that you just, it's hard to put into words, but it's amazing.
Blood, sweat, tears, baby, right? Blood, sweat, tears. When you have that type of an experience with other human beings, with other women specifically, it's a lot of women then too that feel like they're not like other women. So I think for a lot of the women that are attracted to the message and come to live events like you did, Amber, to find it's like, oh my God, you're like that too. I thought I was this weird anomaly woman that just didn't fit in. And so when you actually discover that there's a lot of women that are like you, and then you go again, the blood, sweat, tears, you go through those experiences. Yeah. Like you're bonded, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Cool. And as I told you at the live event, you know what I'm going to say? It was like with love. I'm like, Amber, you're not coming back.
Yeah, that was it.
But here's the thing for that type of experience, because, and I said, I don't even know when I said this to you, but I think it was kind of something like, I'm like, how many of these events do we need to have you come in, Amber? Right. Where it's like, and it's not like, cause you know how much I like care about you, adore you, love you, sister, like do, but it was like, yeah, if you continue to not get the messages, keep coming back, I'm not serving you. Right. By doing that. There'll be other events, which will be cool ones and alumni and stuff like live events. That's totally different. But it was like, it's time for you to get this now.
Yeah.
Right. It's time for you to like get like really clear and wake up to this, because maybe there is another chance next time around.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm pretty fortunate in that my husband was super supportive as far as me going. He would probably tell you that he was the one who not forced me to go, but he was very encouraging. He wanted me to go. It was almost never even really a discussion. It was just like, hey, in passing, I'd be like, hey, I'm going to get on a call with Karen today about this event. And he's like, okay, great. I mean, for him, it was never even like, well, what's the deal? How much is this going to cost? Like, what's happening? He's just like, okay, great. If you need to do that, I'm 100% behind you. So that was helpful too. For sure.
Yeah. I love you brought this up, and as we're finishing up, I just want to speak into this very briefly of like, I do have some women, at times that go like, well, I want to check with my husband, but I honestly believe, and I believe that if these women are being really honest about themselves, it very rarely is a let me check with my husband, because a lot of them kind of like yours are like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, I want you to do this for yourself. But it's for a lot of women, Amber, again, my experience, what I've really seen is that they're unwilling to do it for themselves. Mm-hmm. They don't feel like they are worthy enough, or it's like, well, maybe let's say whether they're working or not working, like, oh, well, my husband should do things, but not me. And who's going to watch the kids? And they go through all this shit. And I think, again, I love that you brought up this piece about your husband being supportive. Some are not. Some really come with maybe their spouses aren't supportive, but the majority is it actually is. But it's sometimes the women that are putting the brakes or getting in the way of them going, because they don't feel like, they create a story about, well, I don't know if my husband's going to really be supportive. When it comes down to like with yours, a lot of them are like so supportive.
Yeah.
It's just simply, it's that woman deciding like, I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. I want to be there. Like this, kind of like you, like, I don't know what's going to happen. It's scary. But I know, just like when I first applied for the group coaching program that I was part of, a couple of years ago, and felt this like something inside of me, and like, I don't know what it is. It literally scares the shit out of me. I know I need to be there. And I simply took the step. And if I didn't do that, you and I would have this conversation right now.
Right.
So I was like running live events. Like, I don't know, like when I was in practice as a chiropractor for 14, 15 years, I spoke tons of like lots and lots of times, hundreds of times to different, retail stores and businesses and large groups, organizations, but not like a 3-day event. I'm like, who does that? That seems like a lot of work. Right. But because I took the jump with that, and then I went through the experience myself, was why I really, why I birthed this. Because again, the possibility for women to really uncover the powerful them. Amber, when you and I first met, you were not in the powerful place. You were not in a place of certainty, and yes, there's been a bit of a drift and stuff like that. And yes, that does happen. But like, I just really want to honor where you are now and how incredibly proud that I am of you and how hard that I know that it's been, because this is not easy work, but it's fucking worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's worth it.
Oh,
yeah. 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 Awesome. Well, Amber, thank you so much. Again, I so honor and appreciate you, sister. And this is cool. And women who are watching, like I was kind of looking on the Facebook Live. And so questions you can also put after that time. I'm going to drop the link in, and those that are listening to this on the podcast, you can go to drkarenosborn.com/theevolution, and it'll be in the show notes as well. You click on and apply, because we're like, as we record this right now live, it's about 2 weeks left until you can apply for the next one. Then we go to the pre-training like we did with you guys in 4.0. Mm-hmm. So thank you again, Amber. Appreciate you, sister. And I know that your story is definitely going to connect with a lot of women. So thank you so much.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosborn.com/newsletter.